Hello, my name is Florian and I welcome you to IT Tech Tips. In the last episode we have set up our Active Directory domain controller, but we still haven't joined the clients to our domain. This is what we're going to do in this episode, but we're going to do it in a secure way, not just using the domain administrator account, because this is really dangerous, but by creating a user especially for this purpose. Let's have a look. First, you have to make sure that all of our systems in our lab are running. If they're not, please start first acme-router, wait for about 5 minutes, then start acme-dc01, and after that, start the clients. If everything is running, we can begin this episode. First, go to our acme-dc01. Then go to Windows Administrative Tools and select Active Directory Users and Computers. Since we're going to use that often in the future, as usual, we're going to pin it to the taskbar by right-clicking on the icon and select Pin to Taskbar. When you're done with that, go to the Users section. And create a new user by right-clicking into the empty space and selecting New User. We will call our user domain.join with the login name domain.join. Make sure you don't have any typos here and select Next. Of course, we're going to use our password we're using for all our passwords in the lab environment, which is password with a capital P, a capital W, the number 0 for the letter O, and an exclamation mark at the end. Enter it twice as usual and uncheck the checkbox that the user must change password at the next logon. Also select the checkbox that the password never expires. We could discuss whether this is safe or not. For our purposes, this works fine because we've selected a really secure password here. Of course, in a real-life scenario, you would select a much more secure password for this account. Then select Next and Finish. Right-click on the user and select Properties to see in which group the user was put by default. So go to Member Of. And as you can see, the user is in the group Domain Users, which is the default group for a newly created user. Select OK, because we are fine with that. And then right-click on our domain in the tree on the left side and select Delegate Control. Click Next on the first page. And here we have to select the user we have just created. So click on Add and search for our domain.join-user. Click on Check Names to resolve the string we have just entered to a real user account. If you made a typo, this will warn you that this user doesn't exist. Since everything is okay here, we can click on OK to continue and on Next. And here is a list of all rights we can assign to this user, aside from any security permissions the user would have otherwise on the domain, for example to shares or something else like accessing the server by RDP, logging in to the server locally, and that kind of stuff. So the user will only have the right to join a client to a domain. You may scroll through the list to see what's available, and we are going to select Join a computer to the domain, and we are just going to select that. Then click Next and Finish. I'm now going to show you 2 ways how to connect a client to the domain. The first client we're going to connect by using the user interface, and the second client we're joining by using PowerShell. Let's start with the graphical user interface. Log in to our acme-client 01. choose the user John Doe, which should be selected by default. Then click on the Windows logo on the bottom left and enter Control Panel to open the Control Panel. Go to System and Security, then to System, and here you can go to Change Settings on the right side of the window. As you can see, there's a section which says to rename this computer or change its domain or work group, click Change. And we're gonna press Change, of course. On the top side you see the computer name, the host name, and on the bottom side you can select Domain and enter the domain name of the domain you like to join. We are entering acmecorp, which is the domain we've created in the last episode. Click OK. And now you have to provide user credentials for a user which is allowed to join this client to the domain. Very often I see administrators using the domain administrator account for this purpose, which is a really bad idea. Why is this a bad idea? Many modern ransomware software is listening on the network quietly in the background, you will never notice that, until it notices that somebody entered an account with domain administrator credentials, and this ransomware will capture the network traffic and forward it to a domain controller or to a file server to try and get more access to files and other stuff on the server, and then to encrypt this. So you should, as rarely as possible, send domain administrator credentials over the network. That's why we have created the user domain.join, so he can do it, and if a ransomware would catch the traffic of these credentials for the domain.join-user, not much harm could be done. The ransomware could only potentially add another client to the domain. So what? So in the username field, enter domain.join and the password. Click OK. And this will take about half a minute depending on the speed of your lab environment, and then you will get the message, "Welcome to the domain acmecorp." Click OK to confirm that, and now you have to restart the client. After the restart is complete, you can select Other User on the bottom left, and you will notice that you have the option to sign in now to the domain acmecorp. So you're not using a local user anymore, but a domain user. Of course, we don't have any domain users apart from the domain administrator and the newly created domain.join, so for the moment you can shut down this client. We're now basically doing the same thing, joining the client acme-client02 to the domain, but this time we're going to use PowerShell. So start acme-client02 if it's not running yet, and log in with our user John Doe, which is the local user on this client. Click on the Windows icon on the bottom left and enter PowerShell. Right-click on PowerShell and choose Run as Administrator. Confirm by clicking Yes, and you will not get an additional security prompt because John Doe is a local administrator. PowerShell may take about 10 seconds to start, depending on the speed of your lab environment, and the command we're going to use is add-computer, then -domain name in one word, and the domain name, of course, acmecorp. Since we want our client to restart automatically after joining the domain, we add -restart. So the command is add-computer -domain name acmecorp -restart. Hit enter, and you will of course be prompted again for a user with the credentials to join a client to a domain. we're entering our user domain.join with the password. Click OK, and then it will join the client to the domain and automatically restart the client. Again, if you select Other User in the login screen, you see that you now have the option to log in to the acmecorp domain. Before wrapping up this lesson, let's have a short look at what happened on the server when we joined the clients to the domain. Go to acme-tco1, which should be running because otherwise the client would not have been able to join the domain. Log in as the administrator. Go to Active Directory Users and Computers. And there on the left side, select Computers. As you can see, we have both of our clients in the list of computers, so the domain now trusts these computers and vice versa. That's it for today's episode. You now have 2 clients joined to the domain for further experimentation. In the next episode, we're going to create users and groups so we can do something meaningful with our environment in the future episodes. If you don't want to miss an episode, make sure that you subscribe and you ring the bell. Stay tuned. See you next time.